I was talking to him, and then he was at my desk talking to me and just sort of locked up and had this screw, his face kind of screwed up for a second. He let go and he let out a deep breath, and then he apologized. He's like, yeah, my meds are a little off. I was like, and I didn't know, and he explained. It was like, oh, and so he would have weird little he'd be just sitting there, just kind of bunch up at the neck, and his eye would just kind of twitch. I mean, it was very obvious what it was. Once you knew what it was, that's hard to fake
and
because it's uncomfortable.
Actual Tourette's you don't actually yell out swear words.
No, some people do.
Some people do, but it's mostly you have these verbal tics, and oftentimes it's just like a stutter or like a stumble over words or physical tics. So in this instance, the school district ruled that it wasn't an environmental anything, that somehow these 12 students had all just developed this for unknown reasons. That is a great example of this kind of mental disorder. They're saying now that it's just that these 12 students have some kind of stress in their lives and that this is how it's manifesting.
Or it could be something that's viral in origin too.
I suppose that's true.
Have you ever heard of Bell's palsy?
Yes.
Yeah, a friend of mine caught that once years ago. He wakes up one day and one half of his face is paralyzed, and he couldn't move it at all.
Yeah, I mean, doctors have tested these kids for pretty much everything under the sun, and it doesn't seem to be anything. They think it's definitely psychological in some nature, so that's a psychogenic disorder.
Okay.
That they think at this point that it's just some kind of stress. Another great example would be a thing that a lot of people have probably heard of, which is the laughing disease. There was this group of African girls who got it.
That was in Tanzania, right?
Yeah. It was very interesting. There's a great radio lab on it. A bunch of schoolgirls in Tanzania just started laughing uncontrollably and couldn't stop themselves from laughing.
Really?
Yeah, for like weeks.
Ooh.
Yeah. Those are examples of psychogenic illnesses.
Okay, so what's going on in the area that would kick this off?
Well, that's a great question. They are in the middle of a really awful famine caused by cold winters, hot summers, crop frost, and violent hailstorms. Also suffering an outbreak of smallpox, syphilis, and leprosy.
Those are all fun ones.
So the whole community is going through this. And you could kind of think, Pat, absolutely it makes sense to me that everybody would just kind of have this, or at least maybe one person has this break, right? This psychogenic break that causes her to uncontrollably dance for whatever reason, and then people see it, and for the first couple of days they think, oh, there's Frau out there, she's just being crazy,
her butt off,
just being crazy, and then a couple of them are like just compelled to join her for whatever reason. They see it every day, and they're also in these stressed mental states, and for whatever reason their brain says, yeah, let's do that too.
Yeah, it could be.
And the more people that join, so I guess that's it's also the only one that really explains why the group would have gotten exponentially bigger over time.
It was kind of like the reverse of the placebo effect too, and that is that, back in those days, people were pretty superstitious. And so you see somebody dancing like that, and apparently against their will, and you start thinking, wow, demons, how much longer do I have to go before the demon gets me? And then you sort of talk yourself into believing that there's a demon out there who's going to take over your body and do this stuff to you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this particular plague, I think you said this before, is not the first time it happened.
Nope, nor the last. Yeah. It was just kind of the biggest and best documented.
I think the first documented case was in 12 or 1300, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, that's really interesting. There's this period of time from the 12th century-ish to like the 17th century-ish, where we see dancing plagues, and really not since then, and not before then. Really, I mean, maybe before then. Maybe we just were like, demons.
And so it was just kind of a fad then.
Maybe.
Do you know why it stopped?
No. Do you know why it stopped?
Well, I mean, I've read some stuff on it. It's what's his name? Saint Is it Vetus or Vitus?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know which way to pronounce it.
I don't know. I'll go with Vetus.
I'm going to go with Vetus, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll say it's Vetus.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the readings that we were doing, there's the thing about St. Vetus, and he...
so you're going to steal my next theory.
Well, but it plays into why it stopped.
Oh, why?
Okay, so for St. Vetus was this saint, and correct me if I'm wrong on how the story goes, but basically he called down dancing as a punishment
it was
on
his
sinners.
Plague. Yeah, if you were a sinner, he would send down plagues of compulsive dancing to anyone that angered him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people, God, what was the predominant religion at the time? It wasn't Christianity.
Yeah,
was it Christianity?
In the Holy Roman Empire?
Yeah,
Okay, well, I know that there was a shift in the direction of the church, and at that time, in that era, a lot of the worship was you worship the saints.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, you worship God, but you still worship the saints.
Yeah, and Catholicism at that time.
About the 1700s, they shifted away from worshiping the saints as much. So then the knowledge about this saint calling this down on people fell out of popular knowledge. So then this reign of dancing terror wasn't something that you knew about anymore, and people collectively forgot about.
Are you saying that if you forget what a saint will do to you, that saint can no longer do it to you?
I am not going to say what a saint can or cannot do to you. I'm not going to fall into that trap. But I do know that people were worried about it. And it goes back to this psychogenic, is that the right word? Yeah. Is that when you're in these times of stress and things are bad, and then, Vetus is setting his stuff down on us, and we're going to be plagued by him.
Better stop sinning, dude. Yeah.
But if that's not being preached at you all the time, you don't know that that's a potential punishment.
Mm-hmm. I guess I kind of was in the same thought process, and I didn't include this because it's not a theory that I came across that was substantiated at all. But I was like, wow, they're in this horrible famine. Maybe Frau was like, wow, I remember we used to do rain dances, like to appease the gods for whatever reason, or whatever they were angry.
Great grandmother used to speak of.
I'm just gonna go do that for a little while, but that doesn't explain why it was involuntary, why it was like a trance state.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the St. Vetus thing, you'd have to believe that is what caused it, and I'm not gonna say that that's what's caused it, but I just wonder if you're in that suggestible state, because life sucks.
Yeah,
and you're starving. And you
gotta do something. Well, it would be easy. Oh, that lady's still doing it, and like Joe said, when's my card gonna get pulled? And, I'm being pulled on the dance floor.
Yeah, the conception of saints as vengeful does appear to have gone away.
Yeah,
I mean, we still have our saints and everything, but we don't really see them as vengeful anymore. And I'm not sure exactly when that sort of turned. I know that the same thing happened with angels. If you look in the Old Testament, angels were not.
They were not nice.
They were not sweethearts like the other day. No, they were God's hitmen. They were they were badass, and he didn't want to meet an angel ever. Yeah, and now it's totally reversed. Now angels are wonderful. They're like good fairies.
They are good fairies.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about saints, since you totally steamrolled my next theory, or my last theory, I guess, we're going to talk about St. Anthony's fire.
Yeah, I like the sound of that.
No, it's actually ergotism, which is how we've decided we're going to say this word. Ergotism is what you get after you eat ergo.
It's I'm not sure if I think it's ergo, but it might be ergot. Okay, one of our listeners, would you look it up and send us an email?
Right now?
Please, now, while we're recording. Thanks.
Yeah, and we talked about this as a possible answer for the Mary Celeste, if you guys will recall.
I do recall.
Yeah.
So I don't think our listeners probably recall this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We totally did.
We did. Yeah. Our listeners may or may not recall that this is something that you get, ergo, is a mold that grows on rye bread when it's stored improperly.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't exactly have good options for
no. And
food
hey,
back in those
you
days.
Remember that famine thing?
Exactly. So
you're gonna eat whatever you can.
Yeah,
buy.
all of it. Moldy bread.
All of it.
Yeah.
It's also a psychotropic mold that can cause delirium, hallucinations, and seizures, among other things.
Yeah, but apparently, from what I've read, the symptoms of ergotism are basically kind of spat. You just sort of spaz out. You know, you don't really dance. You just kind of twitch and spaz.
Yeah, that's a problem. Also a problem for me is why more and more people would be suffering from it instead of a big outburst to begin with, and less people, which is what you would kind of assume if everybody was eating gross bread.
Actually, I have an idea on that.
What's your idea on that?
Okay, so Frau is dancing, and everybody's kind of coming around and watching her, and then somebody else joins in the dance, and the local, was it the city commission or whatever
city
they
council,
were,
yeah.
they turned the whole thing into like a giant dance hall when they decided to let them dance it out.
Right, when they decided that it was hot blood.
Yeah, they hired musicians and all that.
Right, okay.
So we'll just dance it, yeah.
So what happens when you do that? People gather to check it out. So then there's somebody industrious says, you know what, I'm going to
set up a food cart.
I'm going to set up a food cart, and all these people are going to buy my food, and just happens to have a whole stash of bread that is infected and laced with it, and now people are standing around watching it, and then they're afflicted with ergotism, and then they start dancing, and more come to watch, and that guy's just taking all the bread he can and serving it to everybody.
Yeah,
I could see how exponentially that would help encourage the growth of the epidemic if that's what caused it, if the ergotism is what made it happen. But like you said, I mean, ergotism is twitching. It's not full body, where it sounds like mostly it's in the extremities. You're not jumping up and down and quote unquote dancing the boogie woogie.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this happened like many years ago, like 500 years ago. So. And as we all know, tales have a way of growing in the telling, so they might have just been spazzing out a bit, and then somebody described it as dancing at some point.
Oh, no. The historic documents that we have very clearly state dancing, not seizuring or spasming. They specify that it's dancing full on with legs and arms and everything.
And some of the other accounts that I read about, not this one specifically, but I think it was an earlier one. I think it was a monk that was writing about it and was saying that people were doing it and they were falling down and dying because they would fall and they'd break a rib, or I can't remember the exact phrasing of it, but it was something about breaking their loins. Basically, I think they're breaking bones in their legs, or everything is so tender that muscles are tearing inside and they're falling. It sounds like internal bleeding at that point. But you're tearing your legs up. I mean, think about your feet. If you dance, you go to an event, you dance for an hour, and you go home, you take your shoes off. Oh, my feet hurt so bad.
I know.
Now think about if you've been doing that for 12, 18, 30 some odd hours. Your feet are going to be hamburger.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, your whole body is, but especially your legs and your feet.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main problems people have with it, why they say that it must have been a trance or altered state of mind, because there's just no way for a human to sustain that, particularly if it's voluntary. It's further proof for why it was involuntary, because who does that to do it that long?
Yeah, I don't think I would dance for 5 minutes.
I don't think I would either.
Yeah.
The whole trance thing, though, would explain why they would just push past the pain.
Yeah, because if they were in an altered state of consciousness, they probably wouldn't even be registering the pain, recognizing the pain,
or not nearly strong enough to stop.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean that lends a little credence to the possibility of a trance, but I still don't understand exactly. I still don't buy how they got into this trance. It's still a little odd to me. And the other thing that I don't know if you guys came across this, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation here, is Sydenham's chorea? Does that sound like a correct?
Sydenham's chorea.
Sydenham's chorea?
Sydenham's chorea.
So chorea, because I was looking this up, it's a disorder, and evidently it pronounces itself, or the symptoms of it, are rapid, uncoordinated jerking movements, which are in the hands, the feet, and the face, which I could see how somebody could construe that as dancing. If I'm standing there and my hands, my feet, and my face are kind of jerking around and spasming, you would think, well, you're just doing a weird dance.
You're doing a white person dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm totally dancing.
I'm dancing.
Yeah. Now, this particular affliction is something that actually, this particular thing, it affects like kids mostly.
It's mostly kids, and it's like an autoimmune disorder, apparently,
Yeah.
and it's one that you usually recover from.
Now, I know that this particular thing comes about as an effect or after effect of rheumatic fever, which is, again, this is a disease that would have been possibly running rampant through the area.
It also can be an after effect of a streptococcus infection also.
Oh.
So, yeah, and so it's like one of those things where it does sufficient nerve damage, to your nervous system, and then eventually your immune system starts to attack itself, starts to attack your nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you get all spastic and everything. But apparently most people recover from it. But
Could it have been that widespread, though?
Well,
yeah, and the idea too that it would suddenly afflict all these different people all at the same time. It's a little strange.
But it could have been some random strain of streptococcus or rheumatism, or not rheumatism. It's
rheumatic fever.
Yeah, it could have been some oddball strain that came through, and everybody didn't realize that they had it. Let's just say everybody's got it's like having a small cold. Mm-hmm. You don't realize that you're really that sick. And so everybody's got it, and so it's onsetting to them, and that's why it was so strangely pronounced at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it hasn't, that version of the disease hasn't lived into our day and age. It died out, which we've seen with other infectious diseases, like the plague, the Black Plague. We no longer have that because we beat it off eventually, and it's gone in its original form that took and killed so many people. That version is no longer around.
Yeah, but there's another equally nasty version around.
Yeah, and there's but the point is that I could see how that happens. Now, granted, again, this afflicts mostly children, but I could construe it back in time to a different strain that could have been afflicting adults.
I guess it just seems like they did a pretty good job keeping the records in this place, and the physicians were obviously on it. I mean, they diagnosed all these
hot blood. Yeah,
hot blood.
They were all over
it. But I think they would have probably said, "Oh, it's so weird. Everybody had this cold, and now everybody's dancing."
But everybody might not have reported the cold. I mean, think about it. You go to the physician when you're sick, and you have money to pay. It's not a healthcare system.
Yeah.
I have to have the money to go see the doctor.
Yeah.
And it might have been too. It's like, oh, I'm going to go see the doctor. He's going to at least take some of my blood out of my body.
Yeah, he's going to put leeches on me again. Have you ever seen? This is a random aside. Have you ever seen the old Saturday Night Live skit with Steve Martin where he's the barber?
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And he's constantly ordering bloodletting?
Yeah.
That's what I always think of. Oh, anybody like Devin who's staring at me blankly, who hasn't seen this before, just look it up on YouTube. I know it's out there, and it's a classic Martin. But it's really funny, but it's just... Bloodletting!
Yeah.
That's what'll cure you!
It's actually theorized that George Washington died from that.
Really?
Because, he got sick, but then his doctors were like draining his blood from his body, and he might not have died.
He needed that blood.
Yeah, I mean,
to fight
seriously.
the infections.
Yeah, you need blood.
It's weird.
There's no such thing as a surplus of blood in your body.
No,
and it's also weird how far in history we think of. I always think of bloodletting as kind of a medieval thing.
Yeah,
but the fact that it's we're talking 1700s and possibly people were still using bloodletting as a treatment. It's just so archaic and weird to think that it made it that far forward in time.
Man, I can't wait until like 20 years from now. We're like, it was so archaic.
I know.
Using antibiotics.
Yeah,
well,
so archaic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of received wisdom is overturned all the time. If you're paying attention, when I was a kid, they said, they had the USDA food pyramid, which is pure bunk.
Oh, it absolutely is, yeah.
And they said you have to drink 16-ounce glasses of water a day. No, somebody just made that up. Salt's bad for you. No, it turns out salt isn't bad for you. Coffee's bad for you. No, it turns out it's not. Butter's bad for you. No, it's not.
Turns out fat's
not bad for you.
Natural fat, great for you. Carbs may be actually bad for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Things that we were like, hey, just have these instead.
Have the low-fat, high-carb
Just kidding.
thing. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Oopsies.
So stuff is being overturned all the time.
That's true. Like bloodletting.
Yeah.
Although, in 20 years, we're going to find out bloodletting actually the most effective in fighting cancer. So
I'm not taking that. I'm not taking that treatment. I hate leeches. They're gross.
They are gross.
Yeah, seriously, they're disgusting.
So I guess we're out of theories.
I guess it's time to take a vote.
Yeah, I guess it is time to take a vote.
Yeah, so I'm going to go for the Buffy solution. It was a demon.
It was a demon.
It was a
dancing demon.
Yeah, a demon that made you dance.
Okay, Steve.
The only one that I guess I could kind of possibly get behind is the psychogenic one. Trans states happen, and I could maybe see that being the reason. I'm not sold on any.
I like the moldy bread.
Yeah.
Oh, the ergot?
You like the moldy bread?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I don't like to eat it, but I like.
I was about to say. You want some toast? I saw some moldy bread over there.
No, thank you. Not interested in that.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of liking my theory that somebody was actually drugging people and putting them in a trance and then making them dance.
Telling them to dance, because that's definitely the most effective use of people.
Yeah, I know.
Well, but if your forte as a craftsman is to build dancing stages, it's going to pay off.
That could be it.
Because the city built that stage. He's like, I'm the number one dance contractor. I'll build it perfect. He would be responsible. We just found the culprit.
There you go. Yeah.
So all we have to do is go back to the
contractor.
census.
Yeah.
Find the contractor of the
go
city.
dig up his grave and spit on him.
Yeah. That'll teach him.
Yeah. Well, it could be that he was administering the drugs and he was not able to administer to specific people. So he had a few people that he really wanted to give the drug to because he either wanted to steal their fortune or have sex with them or something. And so all the other ones, he would just say, "Oh, you're in a trance. Why don't you go out in the streets and dance? I've got some work to do here."
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see the links from this episode,
good luck.
You got to dance your way over to our website.
Dancing is required.
Dancing is absolutely required. I feel like this is the opposite of the city of Beaumont from Footloose. That's what this is the opposite of that. So dance your way over to our website. It's thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can listen to our podcast there, of course. You can leave us a comment if you want there as well. You can also listen to us on iTunes, where you should definitely leave us a comment and a rating. We're loving those. They're awesome. Awesome. You can also, if you forget to download the episode before you leave, stream it through Stitcher on any of your mobile devices. If you want to join the conversation, check our Facebook group out. There's been some really interesting conversations happening there.
Yeah, there's been some fun stuff on there.
Yeah. You can always send us an email at thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. And speaking of our email, I think we have some listener mail tonight.
We got a couple.
Oh, a couple.
Well, you should probably read the first one because you'll really like the first one.
Oh, I will?
Yes.
Okay, this one is from Allie Miles, who's from the United Kingdom.
All right.
I'm sorry for doing that weird accent.
Cheerio.
No. It says, "Hi, folks. Just wanted to say I really enjoy your podcast. Not quite sure how it found its way to me here in Hull, England, but I think it was when I was trying to find out about the Isidel woman a few months back." Oh, yeah.
The Isdal?
Isdal.
Yeah.
That's, I say things right all the time.
We have great pronunciation on this show, evidently, today.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really into historical mysteries, so I downloaded quite a few of your shows. It's really good stuff. I, in particular, like the Tom and Shrewd and Lead Mask episodes.
Told you you'd like this email.
Yeah, my episode.
Hey, what about my episodes,
Well, he listened to the one the Isdell woman.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
And then he has a suggestion of a show, like almost everybody does,
yes.
which is awesome. And I'm actually really excited about this. I'm going to try and jump on this pretty quick here.
Which is funny because I told him that you would probably be all over that
one. Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
So it's got a lot of German words in it?
Yeah, lots. It actually is all in German. So we're going to do an all German podcast. So, yeah, thanks for the email, Allie.
Then we have one more, which this isn't something that we normally do, but I really like this because this was a really cool thing to do, is we got a email from Ormond.
Yeah.
And Ormond evidently listened to a show that had just come out. We had released the episode about the Nazi bell.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, we pre-record these.
Yeah, so this is we're a little bit ahead when we're doing this show today. And so Ormond had listened and said, hey, that reminds me of another story, and sent us a link to another story, which I don't know if either of you, I didn't know about this till I came across it.
No, I saw that one. It was I don't know how I came across it in investigating the Nazi bell story. But this one was definitely one that I checked out.
And it's the Kecksburg UFO incident.
Yeah.
And what you kind of know the story? Let's just talk about it briefly because it's a great follow-up to the Nazi bell.
It is.
Yeah. So the Kecksburg UFO incident, I didn't include it in the Nazi bell because it's like, even though it's slightly Nazi bell shaped, it's like it doesn't appear to be related to the Nazi bell. But this was a UFO that crashed in 1965 in Pennsylvania. And it reportedly, lots of people saw the fireball and it caused sonic booms and stuff like that.
And it dropped fire as it went and caused fires in the area.
Yeah, and it winds up in this patch of woods in Pennsylvania somewhere. And then some of the locals that went out and found it and saw it, and they reported this acorn-shaped object, which is kind of sort of halfway Nazi bell.
It does look kind of like that.
It looks kind of bellish. Sort of a little bit like the Nazi bell, and it's got what appears to be hieroglyphics around the outside of it at the bottom. And but apparently it's just the usual thing, the government came in and sealed off the area and
Men in Black,
and trucked it away, but said there was nothing there.
Yeah, nothing to see here, folks.
There's a weather balloon.
Yeah. So even though some people have tried to connect us with the Nazi bell, I don't think they're related.
Story.
Oh yeah, no, it is an interesting little story. I like it too, but it's just not Nazi bell like quite enough to include it with the Nazi bell.
But I did like how quick he was on the draw. He knew exactly what it made him think of, and just shot that email right over, which I love. I think that's awesome. And if people hear things in shows and it makes you think of something, by all means, tell us, because it's hard to catch every related thread. I mean, we work really hard at it, but you just can't always find them.
No, we've got a huge office full of interns who are checking all this stuff too. And but
your cats are not interns.
Well, they think
count.
they are.
They type, and by type I mean walk across your keyboard
and delete documents.
Yeah,
they're very good at that.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what interns are good at too. So.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If anyone is an intern.
Yeah. So anyway, no, but I did do my due diligence in that story, and I did see the Kecksburg UFO incident, but I'm still not sure they're related. But still, thanks for the link, because it is an interesting little story.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about it someday.
Who knows, indeed. I guess with that, we're out of here.
It is that time.
I guess it is that time. It's a quick time, but it's that time.
Yeah. So anyway, that's it for us. So dance, everybody.
Boogie woogie on out of here.
Yeah.
Rock on, boys and girls.
Lay down the boogie, play that funky music till you die.
Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by this grubby piece of paper I'm holding. Instead, it's supported by the generous donations of our listeners on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/thinkingsideways to learn more. And thanks.
Thinking Sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I'm Devin, joined as always by
Joe
and
Steve.
We're gonna not even close to solve a mystery. We're just gonna talk about a mystery tonight.
Yeah, it's probably right.
We'll solve it. Don't
No,
worry.
we're not gonna solve it. We're gonna talk about it. The topic tonight is the death of Kurt Cobain. I'm not gonna go any further than this before I stop and say, if you suggested this as a listener, you're not going to hear your name read because there are too dang many of you.
Yeah, this one's a pretty popular request.
Yeah, like a lot of people all the time. Like literally since we started the podcast, actually, we've been getting suggestions for this. So finally we decided to tackle it. And actually it was because I recently took a trip to Seattle. We went to the Experience Music Project Museum, which is up in Seattle.
What is that again?
It's a museum that's dedicated to music and pop culture.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard of it before, so that's why.
It's freaking awesome. We used to go there when I was a kid, and like you can like play on instruments and all that stuff. And along with the Hello Kitty exhibit that I tweeted some pictures of while we were there.
There is one? Really?
Yeah, there was one, yeah.
Seriously, wow.
There was also, I didn't know that, but there was also an exhibit about Nirvana, and they had a bunch of Cobain's clothes and some memorabilia and like letters that he wrote and Polaroids and all that stuff.
No wax replicas?
No wax replicas. No, it was very tastefully done. And I guess I just started to think about that whole, you don't think about people as people a lot, right? Celebrities, you don't really